Hello and welcome to another Piker's Progress video. This is episode 3 of the Project Fly Rod. As you can see, the rod is basically done. It's probably ready to fish now. This epoxy coating, it's only been on 2 days. Could do with a week really to fully harden, so I'm not going to be going out fishing it just yet. But there's a few colour changes with the thread. We'll get more of that into it. But this is not a video showing you how to wrap whippings and apply the epoxy fishing. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about that. This is just about my personal experience. So let's dive straight into it.
The first thing to do is to find the exact places where we're going to be whipping the guides onto the blank. Here's a screenshot from the Sage website that I used. You can see this is for the SL model that they make. It's a 9 weight, 9 foot 4 piece. And I found that once I taped all the rings into position, I put an old centre pin reel on the rod and some old braid, threaded it through and bent it into the maximum curve that I want to put on it. And yeah, that spacing, it seemed fine. There was the line was touching all of the guides. It wasn't touching the blank anywhere. They didn't come too near any joint. So yeah, so I went with that. Then the next thing to do before we start whipping the guides on, we've got to find the spine of the blank, which I've done in the top 3 sections of this rod. This is the place where the rod wants to bend over naturally. It's just due to the way that it's been wrapped onto the mandrel, the carbon, the way it's been wrapped. And we're going to mark the spine and we're going to whip the rings on that spine. So the rod's going to want to bend it in its natural curve anyway, and that is the side that we're going to have the rings on. Once I've got all the guide locations and the spine marked onto the rod, it's time to put the rings on. And I said that there was some colour changes. You remember from the first video, the original colour was going to be a royal blue and yellow. It's just here on the screen. I did a test wrap, and this royal blue, it was too light in my opinion for the dark blanket. It just didn't look right. So I changed it. I went for a much darker blue, but it was a metallic blue, very similar colour, maybe a little bit lighter than the rod blank as well. So I wrapped that with some silver accent rings on it, and it looked all right as whippings, but coming to finish off and doing the intricate the trim bands and stuff. This metallic thread, the way that the foil's wrapped in the A grade, it made it extremely hard to hide the tail pieces when you're ripping it back through on itself. So I was back to the drawing board again, and I eventually settled on this cobalt blue and the original yellow, and the first ring that I wrapped on it. It's just this butt end here. Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, it looked right, felt right, it whipped all right. So that's what we went with. It's important to feather the edges of the new rod rings. I've used like a Dremel tool here, a little multi-tool with a pink stone in. Just feathering the feet out where the end of the ring's going to finish, and it transitions into the rod blank. This just makes a nice ramp for your threads to ride up on. So once we've done that, yeah, it was taping one leg down onto the rod blank, and then whipping the other one, and then removing the tape, and repeat, rinse and repeat, and all the way through the rod. I was doing like 1 or 2 rings a day sometimes, depending on what mood I was in. The light wasn't always good. I struggled to do it in the evening. I said this thread is very fine, and I was using a magnifier as well. I think I'm just getting old. My eyes just aren't up to this kind of stuff anymore. I'm all out on the big rings, carp rods and stuff like that, but this was really intricate. Took me a while to get going, but it was just it was wrap, and then eventually got to the end of it, and it was time to start the thread art. So I was going to do a decorative cross wrap on the butt section, and because there's no rings there, so we had a look at it, measured it up, and I was going to I made the decision to do a 30 centimetre piece of the blank, which I measured out at the 15 centimetre, right in the middle of that 30 centimetre. We measured the diameter of the rod blank, I think it was about 8.56, I think, at that point. Multiply that by 3.14, which is pi, for those that remember that kind of stuff. And that gives us the distance for the centres along this 30 centimetre point. Just do a little white pencil dot at each of the centres of the cross up the rod. And then it was the first thread to lay down. Now, we've got double-sided tape at the top and bottom here, and this is what holds your thread in position while you move on to the next thread, etc. If you've ever done any thread art, it's self-explanatory. So we went with 3 of the yellow centres. That is going to be the thread right in the middle of the wrap. They then went to a 5 on each side of that of the cobalt blue, and then we boxed it in with some black as well. Now, although black wasn't part of the original colour design of the rod, I wanted to go with some black because it's a black reel, and I've also got a decal with the rod details of my name on, which is in white, so to apply that decal over some black would make it stand out. So we've edged the thread art with some black as well, A grade again. I think we did 4 wraps of the black, and it makes a nice square box transition, perfectly symmetrical. 90-degree corners there. That's because we took the average of the rod diameter, applied it by pi, and that's what gives us the distance from the centre to centre, and it keeps everything 90 degrees. So we just kept going with that to the end, and eventually got to a place where I thought, yeah, that looks nice enough. It looks nice, but it's not too garish or overstated. So it was time to close off the thread art. When it comes to closing off the thread art, we've got to wrap, as I'm doing here. I've picked the centre of the bottom centre. This is the butt end, and you're going to get a good few wraps to get a hold of it, perhaps about 20 odd wraps. And once you get to that position, you're going to clamp up the spool bobbin using the piano wire thread tensioner on the wrapping jig. Make sure that's kept nice and tight. And I've got to cut away all of the thread on the waist side of it. So we cut that away. The rod jig's keeping the black in position for us, and then very carefully with a blade you've got to cut away through all of that double-sided tape. I actually use masking tape just back to front rather than a double-sided tape, but yeah, that's all got to be cut away. Be very careful that you don't cut into the blank. It's okay if you score the surface, but you don't want to be cutting into it. I've gone for the largest size of the Fuji folding hook keeper. I think it's 5.5mm width, and that closing wrap that we've trapped all of the thread art in, this is where the hook keeper is going to be inserted into. We're going to tie it into that same wrap just for the sake of keeping everything tidy, and then we're going to continue this black wrap all the way down to the winding check of the butt, the handle of the rod. And this is going to give me a nice black base to put the decal on. The other end of the thread art I actually closed off in the blue, in the cobalt blue that we've done the wrappings in. I think it looks alright, it looks good, I'm happy with it. So here it is, all complete. Well, the wrapping anyway, we've got to epoxy all this now, but you see how I've captured that hook keeper in to the final piece. And there's all my thread art, crosses and diamonds going up. And the last little bit finished off in blue. So this is the colour locking chemical. It's made by the company called U40. It's a U40 colour lock. The idea is that it's going to soak into all the threads and push any air out, which will minimise any air bubbles when we come to epoxy it. And it will also lock the colours. It will make them fast, colour fast, so that the colours don't change over time with UV light or a reaction to the glue or anything like that. I can't comment whether or not it works because I'm going to need a few years to do that, look back and see if the colour's faded, but I don't want to go to all this work, then put the epoxy on and find out all the colours have changed and it don't look like it was. So I'm give it 2 coats of this. This is on the thread art, the hook keeper, and all of the rod whippings. Sorry, yeah, they're all going to get 2 coats of this U40. I'll leave about 4 or 5 hours to dry in between each coats. I'll have it turning it in the rod turner that we made in the very first video. I'll put a link up there for you. You can go back and see that. There it is, U40 Colour Lock 2 it's called. And this is the epoxy finish. It's a 2-part, an adhesive and a hardener. And all of my whippings are getting 2 coats of this epoxy. And it takes 12 to 24 hours between coats. So it's basically putting a section of rod in the dryer, letting it turn, coming back to it after about 4 hours when it's skinned over, and switching the turner off and just letting it finishing off overnight, and then come back and give another coat the next day. It's just turn and turn and turn. I did find that on the decorative butt section that we did, we put 1 coat of the epoxy on, and I wasn't happy with the finish of it at all. It didn't seem to spread out as well. Maybe it's because there's too much friction there with the amount of thread whippings on that decorative section, but I'm really happy with all the whippings. But I decided for the final, I did 3 coats on this on the thread art bit, but I decided to go back to my original epoxy that I've used for years, which is this Thread Master, and I mixed up a portion of that and put the last 2 coats on, and I must say it spread out much even. It was much better. I was really happy with it. Yeah, we did 2 coats of this and then allowed that to go off, and then I applied that decal that you saw there. I'll show you a close up in a minute, and then it was a coat over the top of the decal as well. So it was just turn and turn and turn. It seemed like for days on end. It's a 4-piece rod, and every one of them's got to have probably 4 hours each, twice, sometimes 3 times that, and that's just for the epoxy. There it is. There's my decal and the threads we used. Really nice. I'm really happy with that. Yeah, really happy.
So here's a quick close-up of the decorative cross wrap that we've done on the butt section. You can see there that it looks like some kind of multicoloured ribbon that's just laid around the rod, but that is made up from black, blue and the yellow individual threads. Really intricate to do and time consuming. Nice little decal made, tells me what the rod is. The Blokex GNP 9'9" weight. Got my name and the Pike's Progress in there. It's a little close up of that. That's from the Guides and Blanks shop. They're quite cheap, those little decals. It comes in a pack of 2. And then I've got a Fuji folding hook keeper, which if I'm walking up the bank I could just put a fly on there, keep it out of harm's way. So there's my butt section. So we need a reel, and we bought a reel, and here it is. It is a Vision. It is a 9/10 weight reel, so it's a bit bigger than your small trout reels. Now when I started looking into fly reels, and remember, I've never held a fly rod in my life, but when I started looking into them, I wanted a nice silver, like a nickel finish there, something that's going to tie in with the rod. All my fittings are nice and silver. I wanted a nice silver reel. Nah, think again. I did quite a lot of looking. Yeah, they're not really silver, they're more of an aluminium. If you wanted something like this nickel finish or something like that, you're paying into £200 plus. They're ridiculous money, fly reels are. It seems the choice is that they're either cast, the arbor is cast and the back plate possibly cast in one piece, or they are machined, CNC milled machined, and obviously the CNC milled ones are going to be much more accurate and run a lot better. But that seems where your price is what you pay for. I paid £100 for this. If I'm honest, I was expecting just a glorified centre pin reel, because that's what it is basically, isn't it? I have got a couple of old centre pins which I used for the guide spacing a few weeks ago, So I know what centre-pin reels feel like, but when this arrived, I was actually very impressed. It's got a beautiful clutch on it, which centre pins don't really have, but obviously it's lovely free spinning that way to drag line off. However, this centre knob controls the clutch, and when you're going backwards, it is a very smooth clutch indeed. Very nice. So it'll go one way perfectly fine, as you can see, and then when you go in the other way, it is clutched, so it's a lot stiffer to bring off the back. I think this is the adjustment here. Slacken that clutch right off, tighten it right in. So if we do get a monster on this and it strips off the fly line and onto the backing line, we've got a decent clutch on the reel. So that was £100, quite expensive, but I'm hoping that's going to last me a long time. So let's get her on the rod. So with 100 sheets for the reel, we've then got to put line on it, which I've done a bit of research, and this seems to get very good reviews. It is not the cheapest. I think that was in the region of £50. See there, it's the Airflow Pike Stream. It's the Sniper Intermediate, and the Intermediate it's not floating, but it's not exactly sinking. It sinks at a very slow rate, and this should be absolutely perfect for fishing just under the surface, perhaps in the first foot, maybe 2 feet of water, depending on how much line's out. Anyway, so it's a nice yellow and it's a blue, so it's all matchy with the rod. So that it's not, so to say, it's not cheap. That was in the region of £50 for that. That's for 36.4 metres or 40 yards. So that's more than £1 a yard. But it lasts as well. So if we get a few seasons out of that, I'm going to be happy. We want some backing line to go on first. This is a £30 Chartreuse, which I think is yellow. Well, it is yellow, I can see it's yellow there. It's a weird material, it's very soft. But yeah, it's £30. So there's 100 yards on there. I'm going to get the distance sticks out and split this spool in half. If you want to look at filling line with reels, any kind of reels, whether it be they bait casters or big pit reels, and you want to split up bulk spools or 100 yards here, I'm going to split that in half, 50 yards, and reversing line. I put a video up here, or does it go that side? I don't know. Have a look at my line loading video, that should explain things for you. So that's our backing line. So the backing line is going to go on the reel first, then we're going to have the fly line. Then we're going to go for about 6 or 7 feet of fluorocarbon. This is going to be a fluorocarbon leader. This is 23.5 pounds fluorocarbon. There's only 50 metres on this spool, but it's still going to last a long time. You're only using 2 yards up, or not even 2 metres up once. So that is going to be what is going to connect the fly line to the wire trace. So that's our fluorocarbon. I've used wires, I've knotted, spun, crimped, all wires. All I tend to use now in all of my fishing, apart from very fine live bait fishing for chub maybe, but yeah, anyway, it's mainly always titanium that I use now, simply because it lasts so long without getting kinked up. But the flyboys seem to like this, not too kinky. I've not used this particular one myself. I tend to use Kahira and Nightingale, which is probably a similar stuff. But this is single strand 18 pound wire. And this is knottable, so I can make a loop and do loop to loop to the fluorocarbon and knot a snap onto the end of it, which is going to be connect my fly. So we'll get on with loading the reel in the next video, because I'm also in the process of researching tying flies. You can't do all this DIY, building a fly rod from scratch and all the tools to do it, and then go and buy a fly. That just wouldn't be cricket, would it? So I'm going to buy a fly tying vise and some of the tools to go with it, some of the materials, and we're going to have a go at making a few simple flies. So that's going to be in the next video. We're going to sort the line out on the reel, show you what I bought with the vise and all the materials and hooks to make some flies, And what else we got to do next time? Not quite going to be the fishing season for the rivers by the time that comes out. So yeah, we'll get out onto a couple of still waters that I know. Not using flies or hooks, but we'll just do a little bit of test casting on the rod as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.